Works. I'm the punching bag, metaphorically, not physically.
I wouldn't call you that. You are, but I wouldn't call you that.
Yes, you would.
Shut up, punch bag.
Fuck you, Dean. Hi, Kevin. We're not a huge channel, and this isn't one of my biggest things, but I'm so happy you're here. Kevin Strange of Strangeville.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. It's always a fun time talking to you fellas. And I just realized that my headphones match my outfit. That was totally unintentional.
No, you did it on purpose.
We know you did it on purpose.
You did it on purpose. Dean would have done it on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hello to anybody who's not in my chat but is watching, because I do have a few. So, tell me what you've been up to. Since the last time we spoke, we have a new campaign.
Yeah, I guess the last time I was on, we were talking about Cockhammer Lives, the graphic novel. Is that true? Is that
yes, that is what we were talking about. I noticed when I went to IGG today that it's being reviewed.
Oh no, they completely removed it and didn't give me any explanation as to why. They said that they don't allow campaigns with violence and sexuality in them, but nothing on the page indicated. I don't think anything on the page indicated that there was any of that in there other than the title Cockhammer Lives. But I asked them for a second review, and they did, and they sent me the same form letter, and they did disperse the funds to me, and I did get the entire campaign fulfilled. All the backers got everything that they were promised on time. I think I shipped out within 6 days of the campaign ending, which was a record for me. And so that's. But then after the campaign ended, they shut the campaign down and told me that I guess they slapped me on the wrist. And like I said, I asked them for a second review when I went to launch this campaign. Because I wasn't sure they were going to let me do another. I didn't know how hard the wrist slap was going to be, and all they did was send me another form letter telling me that they don't allow violence and sexuality in their on their platforms. So I went ahead and launched this book. The new book is called Nixon and Hogan's Horror Weed Halloween. Right there. Nixon and Hogan's Horror Weed Halloween, which is I did a landscape cover. Yeah, it's a landscape cover. It's actually
nice.
There we go. There's the comic book. There's the actual title page. Right there.
So you're just about all ready to go.
Yeah, it's all good to go. It's already funded. We do really, really low campaign goals so that we guarantee that anybody who jumps in and buys a book gets a book. And like I said, the last campaign, even though they froze it and deleted it, we still fulfilled it within 6 days of the campaign finishing because all of my books are finished and printed before the campaign even launches. So
wait, so you're telling me that people get the books that they paid for?
Yeah, immediately.
You're doing this wrong. You're doing this whole thing wrong.
You're supposed to be waiting at least 60 days after the campaign closes, keep it in demand for the next 2 years, you know. Yeah, you're doing this all wrong, Kevin.
Yeah, those backers should be lucky to ever get that.
Ever get one. In fact, by complaining about it, they become the bad guys oftentimes.
Yeah.
You guys are being funny, but honestly, I think that is a promotional tactic for some creators. That they drag their feet, and the more people start talking about it, bizarrely more people start backing it. It really is crazy how often that happens, where a campaign that does not fulfill, that goes 6 months late, a year late, will still be churning backers into the project, even as people are complaining and asking for refunds. I think it is some kind of weird marketing technique.
Well, there is a this weird thing that does happen with in demand, and it's usually after like 90 days. There's you might as well just shut that shit down. Like the amount of backers that you get after 90 days is minimal, unless something happens, unless you like suddenly you're in a fight with somebody on YouTube or Twitter or the quote SJWs are going after you, and then people will start backing that campaign. I always find it weird when something is like, months late, it's obvious, or you already know it's going to be late and people are still backing it, or
Yeah,
it's
it's
already
bizarre.
really late and people will still to help someone reach like one specific stretch goal. And all I'm
Yeah.
thinking is like, this campaign should have been shut down months ago.
Well, I think that some people use crowdfunding campaigns as a way to, as like donations for their social causes, more so than to actually create art, put art into the world. That's like secondary. That's like an excuse. Using the comic book or whatever is an excuse to be, to rage against those SJWs. We're going to get them. We're going to get them this time, gang. Once we fund this book, the war's over and we're going to win. And this has been going on now for what, half a decade, and nobody wins
Yeah.
anything on either side.
Well,
Both
nobody's
sides just rage and rage and rage, and the rage never ends, and the war never ends, and
well
nobody
because
ever.
it's never ending. It's been
Yeah.
happening. This culture war, quote unquote, has been happening since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go back to Greek theater, and this culture war was happening then. I mean, it's not like this is something new that will ever go away. It just swings back and forth from
Yeah.
conservative to liberal, and I mean that in the most classical sense, not
Right.
modern day political sense.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is, and we move on from it, and instead of playing that game, you give us this.
Yeah, I tend to be. I'm an island. Strangeville is an island unto itself. I don't play politics. I have my politics, and it's really easy to go online and find out what those politics are. And I have in the past been very vocal about those politics. But in recent years, I just realized that my passion has always been storytelling, and my storytelling has at times taken a back seat to this ridiculous culture war that never goes anywhere and never helps my career any. So I tend to fall back on my strengths, which are telling these bizarre, fucked up stories that don't have a political message. They don't have, and I know that's a cheesy way to, people use that as a marketing technique, and I'm being as honest about it as I can. Like, this stuff will offend conservatives and it will offend liberals. Like, I pull no punches when it comes to the nature of the jokes and the situations that happen in these books, and they're not for someone looking to make a political statement or a social statement. In fact, many of the indie comic book figures that I respect the most absolutely disavow me as a creator, because my stuff is so ridiculously extreme and raunchy and sexual, and they don't want anything to do with it, which doesn't offend me at all. That's fine.
Tim Lim is the one that DM'd me today to let me know that I misspelled strange in the original thumbnail. So yeah. But why don't we go ahead and talk about how Nixon and Hogan have gotten where they are and what they've been through for people who weren't in it here for our last stream together.
Sure. So Nixon and Hogan are like my Jay and Silent Bob characters, or my Cheech and Chong characters. They're the stoner, the hapless, bumbling stoner idiot duo that hangs out in Strangeville, and they appear in more stories than anyone else in the Strangeville universe. And that, when I say the Strangeville universe, for those that aren't familiar, my fictional universe is a multimedia universe. It stretches back to filmmaking. I started my career as a filmmaker back in the early 2000s, and I made a series of short and feature-length films. And I play Hogan, and I also write and direct the movies. And my friend Josh Shitsuo Montoya and I play these bumbling stoner idiots, Nixon and Hogan, in many, many films and many little short films. I think there's about 8 or 9 films in total between the feature films and the short films, where they get into their misadventures and bumble around and fight monsters and things. And to try and fail to have intercourse with the ladies, and that has transcended into the comic book universe. I created a few years ago. I decided to take the film universe and transform it into a comic book universe, and I started with a. This is a comic book adaptation of my film of the same name, Dead Shit. So this is Dead Shit, the Talisman of Transmutation. This is my first graphic novel.
And it was so much fun. Like,
oh yeah, you backed
yeah,
that.
I did back it. It was a fun book. I backed the second campaign, which was for the first 3 books.
Yeah. So they originally came out as 3 floppies, and then I combined them into a graphic novel, which is what I sell now.
Yeah, I have the 3 floppies.
The second comic book is called Cockhammer Lives, the graphic novel, and Nixon and Hogan again appear in this book and they get themselves caught up right in the middle of this this occult war between a bunch of different characters, and that was a nice little adventure. And now for my third graphic novel campaign, I'm telling for the first time, and I've told many stories. I've written about 18 novels. Like I said, I have over a dozen films, both short films and feature films, and then now 3 graphic novels and a bunch of standalone comics. For the first time ever, and I don't know why it took me so long to do this, I'm telling my first Halloween story. I've told for some reason I've told many Christmas stories, but I've never told a Halloween story. And I'm a sucker for holiday themed horror, no matter what holiday that happens to be. And there's horror films for every holiday, including Easter, so just ridiculous holidays. President's Day has a.
I think Labor Day is the only one that's really missing.
Yeah, somebody needs to get on that. But for some reason, even though I'm completely, linked and connected to the horror culture, I have never told a Halloween story. And the way my thought process from year to year goes is around this time of year, around August or September, right as the season starts to change to fall. And I start to go, oh man, it's starting to feel like Halloween. I should tell a Halloween story. Oh, it's too late. There's no way I could get a movie done or write a novel or draw a comic book in time for Halloween. But I have plenty of time before Christmas, so I'll do another Christmas. I'll do another Christmas story. And so I've done that multiple times. I have a feature-length film called Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas. I have a novella called The Witch Who Fucked Christmas, which is a sequel to that film. And then I have a sequel to the novella.
Did you say The Witch Who Fucked Christmas?
The Witch Who Fucked Christmas, yes.
Oh, okay.
Following Sarsaparilla the Weed Witch, who is the villainess of Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas. She's trying to steal the Christmas powers out of Santa's butthole in the film, and again in the novella. And then I actually last year wrote and drew a one-shot 32-page comic book called Rocco and Sarsaparilla's Sickmas Time story, which was another. So I now have a trilogy of Christmas stories starring Sarsaparilla and Santa Claus in their never-ending lovers' quarrel, as it were. But this year, I finally decided. This past spring, I was at a horror convention talking to my buddy, and we started making jokes about what would happen in a Nixon and Hogan Halloween special. And I said, you know what? It's early enough in the year. If I work through the summer, I could definitely get a Halloween story done. And actually, for the first time, have a freaking Halloween story set in Strangeville. It's been a long time coming, and that is Nixon and Hogan's Horror Week Halloween. That kind of catches us up to the present and what's going on with these characters now. And they're kind of, Nixon and Hogan are kind of timeless. Sometimes they talk about how they're getting older. Sometimes they don't. They pretty much, in the comic book universe anyway, they don't really age. There's some ambiguous age between late 20s and late 30s at this point. And, they both live at home with their mothers still. Neither one of them have a car. They just, they're just total total losers. And it doesn't really matter how old they are because they'll be that way for the rest of their lives. You know how those guys. Yeah, everybody knows people like that.
We all know. We've all met them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're at a restaurant and there's a guy that's clearly like in his late 40s and he's there with his elderly mother and she's paying the tab and driving the car. We all know those guys. So that's Nixon and Hogan. So there's no hard timeline. In other words, one story doesn't immediately lead into the next story, So these aren't
They don't have to be read sequentially.
They're not serialized in a way that makes, if you don't read the previous one, the next one won't make sense. They don't immediately pick up where the last one left off. So they don't end on cliffhangers and they don't pick up where the last one left off. They just sort of ambiguously happen in the town of Strangeville and happen around the same time. I mean, Cockhammer Lives says it happened around 10 years after the events of the feature-length film Cockhammer, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was 2 days later or 20 years later because the story is standalone and takes place by itself. And that's a criticism that I don't hear people level at the indie comics crowdfunding world very often. And I think that even the most successful creators who make their comics, who put their comic books out on time, oftentimes for whatever reason, have come up with these giant timelines where each graphic novel is just a small section of a huge, larger story, and each book ends on a cliffhanger and picks up where the next one left off, picks up where the next one left off, and picks up where the next one left off. But the problem is sometimes it's 2 or 3 years between the books. And I don't mean that they don't fulfill on time. I mean that they don't get created, but 2 or 3 years apart.
Yeah.
And it really, and I've backed a lot of indie comics on Indiegogo over the last few years, and I get so frustrated when I finish a book and it ends on a cliffhanger, and then the creator is off doing some whole other thing, and I'll get back around to that. Well, you didn't even finish your story, brother. The story's not even done, and I'm a story guy. I'm here for the story. I want to be told really cool stories, and so when these guys leave off on these huge cliffhangers and then take forever to get back to their story, I still kind of feel ripped off. I still, even though, and I'm talking about the best of the best guys that are, that have integrity and that are honest with their fans and do get their stuff out on time. People aren't making standalone books, and I don't know if that's some holdover from being fans of Marvel Comics and the idea of the monthlies or whatever. But we're not doing monthly comics, gang. We're doing these standalone graphic novels, and I think they should be. Personally, I think those stories should be told as such, and that's how I write my stories. So if you read Dead Shit, the Talisman of Transmutation, when it's over, it's over. There's no cliffhanger. It's the end of the story. When you read Cockhammer Lives, when it's over, it's over. That's the end of that story. And for this Halloween special, when the comic is over, it's over. You're not waiting around. Sure, you can wait. You please wait around for the next Strangeville story, because I try to do about 2 a year, but you don't have to worry about if I do run into something and it takes me a year and a half or 2 years before the next story. You're not having to go get caught back up and figure out where you are in the storyline. Like, these are all standalone stories, which might not be important to anybody else, but it is important to me that every story is its own closed system.
I totally get what you're saying. There's a few that I've backed that were just like complete and total cliffhangers, and I'm just like, dude, after the wait, after everything else, now I don't even care enough about the cliffhanger to back another book.
There was one that really made me mad. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a super cool story.
All right, so here, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you because Stupendous wants you to tell him about the DVD tier, because he's a big movie buff too. Okay, so like I said, my universe, the Strangeville universe, is a multimedia universe. So it started as a film. I started as a filmmaker, and the DVD tier I always include on all my Indiegogo campaigns, because I think it's pretty neat to buy a comic book and be able to also snag a movie
that involves the same characters. So I believe included on that tier, you can choose from 7 DVDs. And that's those DVDs are my first film, Dream Reaper, which is a feature-length film, very, very low budget. I was very young. I was a child when I made that movie. I think I was early 20s when I started shooting that movie. I looked much thinner, much skinnier in that film. And it's about a band called Dream Reaper who start being menaced in their dreams by an entity called the Dream Reaper, who hates them because their music sucks and everyone in the nether realm makes fun of him because they use his name. So he goes to seek revenge on the band and starts killing them one by one in their dreams, a la Nightmare on Elm Street. Then there's Dead Shit, which is the first appearance of Nixon and Hogan, which is always a good one to start with. If you're asking what movies to start with, Dead Shit is a good one to start with. Especially if you're going to back Nixon and Hogan's Horror Week Halloween, I would probably choose a Nixon and Hogan movie. You can choose from Dead Shit. That's a short film. It's about 25 minutes long, but it's Nixon and Hogan versus zombies. It's very funny. There is Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas, which is another one that is that's my latest feature-length film, and that one is probably my most competent piece of film work, as competent as I get at being a low-budget schlock master. What someone in the comments here earlier referred to as Trauma Trash. Trauma is a low-budget horror comedy film company that you either love them or you hate them, and most people hate them.
Stu loves them.
I am very much I come from the Trauma school of schlocky filmmaking. So Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas is a good one to go with. There's also Nixon and Hogan Meet Satan, which is another short film where Nixon and Hogan challenged the devil to a bong smoking contest. That's a good one to start with. Again, anything Nixon and Hogan is pretty good to start with if you're also going to back a comic, because you can watch the movie and kind of get an idea of what their voices sound like, what their mannerisms look like, because every panel of the comic book, they look like they're doing this, but you'll actually see in the movies that they do the exact same thing. Like the facial expressions and everything in the movies is exactly the same as the comic books. So I would go with one of those. Those are the ones. Nixon and Hogan are also featured in Cockhammer, which is another good one to go with. That's a feature-length film, and it's pretty. I think it's my best. It's not. I think that Smoke Christmas is my technically most competent film, but I think Cockhammer is my best film as far as storytelling goes. But pretty much any of them will give you a nice, good. You really can't go wrong if you're a fan of Trauma and you want to get that Strangeville cinematic flavor. You can pick up any of them, and I give you a nice big discount. I think it's I think to buy the graphic novel alone is $25, and to get the DVD with it is only $30. So you're only paying $5 for a DVD when we normally sell those for $15 on the road.
Yeah,
he says he's going to be interviewing Mercedes the Muse from Trauma soon. What's the longest one, or can I buy more directly from YouTube? Yeah, you can buy them all directly from my website, kevinthestrange.com. The longest one, the runtime on most of them is roughly an hour and 10 to an hour and 15 minutes, just shy of an hour and 20 minutes. So you'll get the features are Dream Reaper, Colonel Kill Motherfuckers, Stiff Jobs, Cockhammer, and Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas, all roughly run at about an hour and 10 to an hour and 15 minutes. The short films are Dead Shit and Nixon and Hogan Meet Satan. I also have a new, an 8th DVD. I don't remember if I put it in the campaign or not, but on my website, there's a new DVD that contains all of my very, very first short films from the very early 2000s when I was like 21, 22 years old. And it's a disc I call Strangeville Home Movies. And I've had people ask me over the years, like, what's the very first, stuff you did? And I've never had it available on DVD before. I made a bunch of little short films, and I put them like when YouTube first launched, when YouTube only allowed you to do like 10-minute long videos. This is I'm talking 2003.
Long time ago.
Long time ago. They had like a limit of like 100 megabytes as a file size. I made short films back then, and I put them up on YouTube. And I never put those YouTube films on DVD. So that just this year, in fact, just several months ago, I finally compiled a disc that has over 25 videos on it. There's 3 main short films that I put on YouTube. And then I grabbed every Nixon and Hogan short film. So not any of the ones I mentioned. I know Dead Shit and Meet Satan are technically short films, but between films, I would always do these like promotional commercial skit kind of films with Nixon and Hogan in them, where they would actually, so there's one called Butt Hash, where Nixon and another guy are sitting around hanging out, and Hogan busts in the door with the newest hack movie, and they decide they're going to watch it, but they don't have any weed to get high with, and they don't know what to do. So the guy hanging out with them suggests that they shit and piss in a bottle and huff the vapors, and things don't go very well for them at all. But it's a promotional video for the actual film universe. So Nixon and Hogan are both in the films, and they're also fans of the films. They wear the Hack Movies T-shirts. They have the Hack Movies posters on the walls, and so it's like a meta, like little meta videos where Nixon and Hogan are also Hack Movies' biggest fans, and there's about, I don't know, half a dozen of those. So those are all on that disc, the Strangeville Home Movies disc. And every trailer for every movie is also on there. And then I did a bunch of just generic commercial type videos, like promoting my website or promoting a film. So it's like 25 videos in all on the brand new Hack Movies DVD called Strangeville Home Movies. And again, I'm not sure I put that in the tiers to buy on the Indiegogo, but you can definitely buy it from the website. It's a soft launch. I haven't technically announced its world premiere or whatever. I just sort of soft launched it. I've been selling it at conventions, and it is for sale online as well.
You still there, Dean?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Smug is giving you shit from the chat for being quiet.
Oh, fuck you, Smug. Yeah.
Be nice to the chat, Dean.
Be nice to everybody but Smug.
No.
Stupendous says he got the Christmas one. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. That was a lot of fun to make, and I have fans to this day. We made that movie, I think, 2010, so 11 years ago. And I have fans to this day that say that's part of their annual Christmas watch list. And it's actually appeared on several like weirdest or worst or best Christmas lists on the internet. Like BuzzFeed does a weirdest Christmas movie lists every few years, and they always put Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas on there. And what is that other? I don't know. There's 2 or 3 sites that often will go back to the well and use my film as one of the weirdest or worst or whatever Christmas themed horror movies, which is a big honor. I mean, it's crazy that I made these things for next to nothing, and now they're aging. They're more than a decade old, and they're still being referenced on the internet, which just goes to show that they have staying power, which is great, because that's my whole career has been focused on legacy. I don't make something and then put it away. I make stuff and I keep referencing it over and over and over again. The movie about the band Dream Reaper that I keep talking about, that I made that one a long time ago, 15 years ago, and I still reference that character and the events of that film in current stuff, because to me, the Strangeville universe is forever. Everything that has ever happened in the universe can be referenced and is still present. So to see that,
well, that's what happens in our real lives too, isn't it? Right? You're in a community, you're still talking about people in the community, you still see them, they're still present. It's not just Nixon and Hogan, which would make it boring which would make it boring and dull. No offense. I liked the characters in the book, but if that's all the Strangeville universe was, it's not exactly a universe. It might as well.
There's a lot more characters. They just happen to be my favorite of the characters. I do them a lot because they never cease to crack me up. Any situation you could throw at me, I can tell you how Nixon and Hogan can fuck it up and ruin it for themselves. No matter, you throw a softball to them and they'd still manage to get hit in the face with it. Under an underhand softball pitch, they'd still manage to get hit in the face with it. But there's many more characters. In fact, there's, like I said, there's that Christmas trilogy that doesn't. There's no. Well, they're in the first one. They're in Nixon, Hogan, Smoke Christmas. But the two sequels to the Christmas trilogy are just Sarsaparilla and Santa Claus. And then there's also another series that has 3 or 4 things. And I can't think of I guess the Cockhammer universe vaguely has Nixon and Hogan in it, but they're tangential characters. And I made a little one-shot last year called Neon Guts, that follows the 2 main female characters from the Cockhammer series. They're named Gertrude and Mary Beth, and they, we haven't seen them in 10 years either. So I picked back. I wanted to see what was going on in Gertrude and Mary Beth's lives. So I did a little one shot with them, and they're now a lesbian couple, and they have a sex cam show. And the story of that comic is there's a guy that parks his toxic waste truck outside their apartment complex and climbs up on top and tries to get a free peep show while they're doing their webcam show, and falls into his own vat of.
I'm sorry, you don't put all your books up on Indiegogo, do you? You just make them and sell them at cons? Is that what you've?
The graphic novel. The graphic novels go on Indiegogo, and then these little one shots that I do in between. Sometimes they're campaign stretch goal extras, and sometimes no, they come out on the road with me to conventions and whatnot. So that's a lot of my stuff is convention exclusive. I have, for the longest time, I was doing this year I started doing this new retro VHS collection of all my films on VHS tape, and for the longest time I didn't put those on my website to buy. You had to come to a convention and buy them there.
Huh.
I have like exclusive hats and T-shirts, like my new Cockhammer T-shirt. Right. You can get out on the road with me.
How far do you travel for conventions normally? Because I know some guys don't, like go out of state or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm a big sissy when it comes to travel. Even though I've been doing it for 15 years. I try not to go more than 6 or 6.5 hours away, but I live in St. Louis, so that puts me right smack in the middle of the Midwest. So I can go to Chicago, I can go to Kansas City, I can go to Indianapolis, I can go to Cincinnati, Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky. I can go to. I did a show. The longest show I ever drove to was in Atlanta, Georgia, but there's also shows in Tennessee that I can go do. We're doing a show later this year in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm able to go to a lot of places because of where I am geographically, and not have to travel 12 hours to get there. I really want to do. I'm really interested in doing an East Coast run, because there's a bunch of shows along the East Coast, and in like Eastern Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. There's a bunch of really popular horror conventions, and then down in Florida, there's a really popular one called Spooky Empire. I want to get to those, but those are 12 plus hours away, so it would have to be an additional day of travel and lodging, because I'm not going to do that whole drive. And then, because the way I'm cheap, I only pay for hotels for Friday and Saturday when I go to conventions. So I'm getting up early in the morning on Friday, driving across the country, getting to the show, frantically setting up, selling all night Friday. We typically a vendor hall closes around 10 p.m. And I've usually been up since about 5:30 or 6:30 a.m. and then driving and then selling, or setting up and then selling. And so by Friday night, I'm usually completely dead. And I get up and do it all again Saturday. And then Sunday, we tear it all down and drive back home, because I don't want to pay for another night in a hotel on Sunday. So doing the shows that go. Thank you. Stupendous says we're only $40 away from hitting that stretch goal. And the stretch goal is an 11 by 17 version of that Ouija board cover. So this is like a normal comic book size. The 11 by 17 poster will be even bigger. And we're definitely gonna hit that because we still have like 9 days left on the campaign. So we'll hit that stretch goal, no worries, no problem. All that stuff is right now. Those 11 by 17 posters are being printed at the printer, and they'll be here like next week. So those all that stuff is like guaranteed. Like you back my campaign, you're guaranteed. I'll have to die for you to not get your campaign fulfilled, and even then, I'll try to have contingencies in place where people in my life will still ship those out for me. I remember when I may have talked about this on the last time I was on, when I was fulfilling Vicky, when I was fulfilling that the three floppy dead shit Indiegogo campaign, I got appendicitis, and I actually went in and I had a major surgery as the campaign was ending. There was like 3 days left on the campaign, and as I was being wheeled into the operating room and having the mask put on myself, I was like, well, at least I finished that campaign, like, because I had already ordered the books and everything, and it was like the only thing left to do was ship it, and I was like, that campaign's still going to be fulfilled even if I die on the operating table. And it's I don't know why it's so important to me, because it's not important. It's really not important to some people that they follow through with what they say they're going to do, but my integrity as a storyteller is very, very important to me. If I say I'm going to do something, I absolutely will do it. My philosophy is always to under promise and over deliver, big time. And so yeah, anybody that backs that book is guaranteed to get one. I hope I can. I'd love to ship out within 6 days of the campaign ending. I don't know if we'll hit it that quickly this time. I'd love to. It might be an additional week, but even people fulfilling 14 days after the campaign ends is still almost unheard of in crowdfunding, especially crowdfunding comics. So, you're going to get your stuff quick. And if you're into, it's not like I'm hiding what this stuff looks like, what it sounds like. I mean, you can read these captions. It's raunchy, absolutely ridiculous, ultra violent horror comedy, cheesy, schlocky crap. And I love that. I'm not saying that in a detrimental way. That's my favorite stuff to read, comics wise. My favorite types of movies to watch. I live it. I love it. It's who I am as a person. If that's what you're into, you ain't going to be disappointed back in a Strangeville campaign on Indiegogo. I promise you that. And come see me at conventions. You can see my convention schedule all over my social media. We've still got 4 shows left this year. We're going to Louisville, Kentucky to Fright Night Film Fest on October 1st. We're going to Fort Wayne, Indiana on October 15th, 16th, and 17th. We're going to, I said Tulsa, Oklahoma at the beginning of November, and then to Chicago for Days of the Dead. That horror convention up in Chicago takes place in mid-November. I think it might be the week before Thanksgiving. I'm not really sure. My holidays tend to be spent working on comics, so I don't really pay attention to that stuff. I work 7 days a week on this stuff. So, but come out and see me at shows. One of the, like, you can't get the full on Strangeville experience without coming and seeing me live. I usually bring 3 or 4 actors from my movies or other people that are involved in the Strangeville universe, and we drink, we do drugs at the table. If you like mushrooms or edible marijuana, chances are you could swing by our table and get fucking tweaked out with us. We were up at a show in Northern Illinois earlier this month, and there was actually, like, I forget what his position was, but he was some city alderman or something for the city we were in, but he was there like checking out the horror convention because it was like the first or second time they've ever had one. And he was like the 60-year-old dude. He was like 6'5". He was this big bald white guy. And he came by and he was like, "Cockhammer, huh?" And we were like, "Yeah, brother, you want a Cockhammer t-shirt?" And he ended up buying one. And we pulled out this bottle of whiskey from under the table, and we ended up doing shots of whiskey with this city alderman or whatever he was for the city we were in. And that's just the vibe and energy we bring to the show. Like, when anybody comes over and buys stuff, we celebrate with them. I tell them they're honorary citizens of Strangeville. There have been multiple times where we've sat there talked to somebody buying stuff, signed everything, put them all in, gave them a bunch of cool free giveaway comics and stickers and stuff like that. And like, oh, hell yeah, man, enjoy your stuff. Like, we can't wait to hear what you think of the books or the movies or whatever. See you later. And they go walking away, and I look at my buddy and go, did we take money from them? He's like, no. And I have to go chase them down and make them pay me, because we were all just so happy that we were getting the word of Strangeville out there into the world, that oftentimes like the actual sales are take a back seat to just the fellowship that we have with our fans out on the road.
You shouldn't do that anymore, though. Make sure you get their money first.
Yeah, it's not a good business model to just give all your shit away because you're so happy and excited.
Getting your stuff out there is the most important thing. But yeah, also the money. Well,
the money keeps us out there. That's the thing, is they're not free. They're not cheap to do these shows. Travel expenses are crazy. You have to buy these tables at these shows. Obviously I'm not a mega celebrity. I don't get paid to go. I don't get appearance fees to go to these conventions. I'm slumming it down on the vendor level, where I'm buying the tables. I'm like a stripper. Strippers have to rent the stage from the management at the strip club. I have to rent the table from the management at the horror convention, so I can sell my smut and schlock. So,
quick spoiler-free synopsis of Nixon and Hogan's Horror Weed Halloween.
Sure. So it's Halloween night in Strangeville, and Nixon and Hogan are dressed up as their favorite horror monsters, and they're gonna get all nice and twisted up on some Colombian smoke-ass weed and go trick-or-treating. Even though they're like ambiguously in their 30s, they're gonna go trick-or-treating because of course they are, and because they still love that free candy, motherfucker. And they realize that they're out of weed, but Hogan does have an alternative. He has been visiting the Strangeville cemetery and has found joints rolled of old bones from the dead at the Strangeville cemetery, and they decide to smoke these bone joints, and accidentally unleash this character you see standing in front of you, Death Head Doug, the baddest badass in the Deadlands, and he is here to rip a hole in reality on Halloween night, which of course Halloween night is the veil between worlds is the thinnest at midnight on Halloween night, and he's going to rip open the veil, as you can see him doing clearly right here in this panel that you're showing, and unleash all of the beasties and baddies and ghouls and goblins from the Deadlands into the earthly realm. And it's up to bumbling ass Nixon and Hogan to try to figure out how to stop this. Will Nixon and Hogan end Death Head Doug's reign of terror on Halloween, or will the first Strangeville Halloween special be the last? Here's your synopsis.
Well,
I've heard of bone joints. Yeah, you're supposed to stay away from those.
Not a good idea, huh? Don't some like rock star musicians end up telling their friends, like, when I'm cremated, put my ashes in a joint and smoke me? I think that's pretty common in the rock and roll world.
Yeah, but those guys like worship Satan.
Sure. Yeah.
No.
Just kidding.
That's why these things exist. That's why, people start ripping holes in reality.
Yeah. Dastardly Satanists.
Well, I'm glad we got to the end of that mystery. It's clearly rock and roll. It's the devil. No, it sounds awesome. It sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It does.
I think it is.
Really
Like
good.
I said, I'm excited to do the first. Halloween is obviously my favorite holiday. It's every horror fan's favorite holiday, and it's nice to finally have a piece of storytelling that represents that. It's been a long career to be without Halloween stuff, so I'm very stoked about it. I actually this book is full color, 64 pages, and it's a little bit shorter than my other graphic novels, and I actually feel like the 64 page thing is like a really good, like, sweet spot, because when I finished drawing it, when I completely finished the art and the lettering and everything, and it was a finished comic, I wasn't sick of the characters, and I wasn't sick of the story. Like and it doesn't matter what you work on. If you're a creative person, if you do something of length, by the time you're done editing it, and by the time it's polished and it's ready to come out, you're like, I just need a break from this. Like I've been grinding and grinding and grinding on this thing for so long. Doing the 64-page book, I felt like I wanted more Death Head Doug. I wasn't done with him. I felt sad that his story was concluded, at least for now, in the Halloween special. And so I think I'm going to aim for closer to the 64-page mark for future graphic novels, and not try to go into these like crazy tomes. Like Cockhammer Lives is 152 pages, which is really cool. I got to do a lot of storytelling, and there's a lot of different threads of story that all interweave together, and crazy shit happens. But Lord, did it kick my fucking ass. It took me almost an entire year to draw that book, and by the time I was done, I was ready to be done. And I love it. Like I'm back on the Cockhammer Lives train now that I've had time away from it, and I've worked on several new projects since then. But when I was done with it, I was done with it. I was ready to move on and do something else because I've been working on it for so long. And so I think I'm going to try to stick to the kind of, I don't know if 64 pages is considered a short graphic novel or a medium length graphic novel. I don't know, but it's what I...
In Comicsgate, it is a long graphic novel because those are all 48 pages.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm thinking. Like they're charging $25, $30 for a 48-page book. So a 64-page book is like a damn Bible comparatively. My 152-page book is unheard of. My 152-page book is unheard of. Like, well, I don't know if any Comicsgate books are that long, are they?
You're like God to these people.
Well, no, they're not. They don't care about the books. They don't care about that.
Yeah, I mean, some do. Some do for sure. But I understand what you're saying. Like, like clearly there are definitely some people that are just trying to make some money, and that's all it is for them, for sure.
But you also write words without pictures, so.
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, obviously, I'm very long-winded even in person. So there's I'll never forget. I was at a convention one time when I was still just doing movies, and my film Stiff Jobs had been released, and we went up to the hotel room after the show, and there were a couple of fans that wanted to come up and watch the flick with us. So we did like a little impromptu screening. There was maybe only 7 or 8 people in the room, and we did a little impromptu screening of the movie. And it's a very, very, very talky movie. It's just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And then the movie ends. And I remember this one fan, he was crying laughing because in the credits of the film, I, for whatever reason, was writing these like paragraphs to my crew, like, to so-and-so. Thank you so much for all your hard work on this film. We couldn't have made it without you. And you were an integral part of this and this and this. And so it's these big blocks of texts that are scrolling by. And he's just crying, laughing. He's like, you're still not done talking. All that fucking talking in the fucking movie. And you're still fucking talking in the credits. So I have that gift of gab for sure. Funny. Which is weird. Often in the comics world, that's like, I don't know, it freaks people out. People don't do a lot of talking in comics. People think comics are all about punching and kicking and flying around, which is very cool. But I still have my shit talk while they're punching and kicking and flying around. I try not to. It's actually considered, believe it or not, it's considered an amateur storytelling trope in comics to have dialogue bubbles in every panel. It's considered like for a brand new amateur creator, he like won't have confidence in his panel art to carry itself. So they try to fill the panels with words to balance it out. I go out of my way to make sure every panel of my comic book has dialogue in it because I love talking and I love characters talking to each other. And I love the dialogue to just keep going and going and going. Even as characters are dying, they're still getting their last word in as they're laying there in a pool of their own blood and gore. And And if that's an amateur thing, fine, that's an amateur thing, but it's also a Strangeville thing. That's a Strangeville trope that's going to be there forever. I'm never going to stop doing that because I think it's funny. I think it's funny as hell.
I think it's like, and I could be wrong because I don't know anything, but I think it's more like you do it, right? So it works for you because you do it, right? Like it's what you like, and so you're able to do it well, right? But
it's a conscious effort. I'm doing it on purpose. I'm not doing it as a crutch to avoid the art.
Whereas like other people, if it's done, it's probably subconscious, or it is consciousness of them not being comfortable with their art, but like which makes it bad, right? But you do it on purpose. You're doing it because that's what your comic does.
Yeah, I mean, people are often criticized because they, like, in the panel, there'll be a guy throwing a punch at another guy, and then the dialogue is like, and now I will punch you with my fist. It's like redundant dialogue where the action itself can clearly show what's happening, and then trying to use dialogue to like reinforce it, and it's redundant and it comes off as clunky. Whereas my shit is like a conversation that just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the action.
Yeah,
or is an enhancement to it, not necessarily a redundancy.
Mm. Yeah, that's kind of like I would call that like Dragon Ball Z dialogue.
Exactly, which is, I mean, it's awesome in its own right.
Oh yeah, no, Dragon Ball Z is great, but like the early Dragon Ball Z like dubbing, that's how it kind of was like you don't need to say it. We're seeing you. We're seeing you do it. You don't gotta tell everybody you're doing it.
That's one of the old trauma tropes that I love so much. Those old trauma movies is they would, since they were so low budget and they couldn't afford like real props, they would make their own shitty props that sometimes didn't even look like whatever the thing was supposed to be. Maybe it's supposed to be a toaster, but it looks so shitty and dumpy that they would actually write toaster across the front of it. So the audience was crystal clear. Hey, this is a toaster because it says toaster on it. I tend to do things like that in my art because of it's like a callback to that schlocky filmmaking of like, this might not look like the thing, but I'll make sure you know it is because I'm going to write it on there.
That's funny. Yeah, why wouldn't they just get a toaster?
That's, movie magic, brother. You build it out of cardboard because you don't want to spend the $2.
I mean, I'm sure somebody on set had a toaster.
Had a toaster, right?
Yeah, there wasn't a nearby thrift store. Who knows?
You gotta, I mean, trauma is its own crazy world, and they actually make feature-length making of documentaries about the film sets when they make them. And there's literally people on the set that'll say the same thing, like, why don't we go buy t-shirts? Why are we doing this? Why are we wasting our time? It's taking 10 times as long, and this would only cost $10. And it's just the way they do things. It's just like, I don't want to spend the $10. We don't have the $10 to spend. You're gonna give me $10?
This is a very low budget movie. Who do you think we are?
Who do you think we are? Steven Spielberg? Can't afford a toaster.
Yeah, I really did. I loved Dead Shit. Just saying. Anybody in the chat who thinks they might possibly be interested in Strangeville Halloween, I've dumped the link to the IGD in the chat. It is in the description. Go check it out because this shit is just funny and fun and irreverent and immature and just like all the best adjectives you can think of.
And we're only $40. We're only $40 now shy of the first stretch goal, which we said before was an 11x17 poster of this cool Ouija board art with Nixon, Hogan, and Death Head Doug on it. But we'll keep burning through. We usually get 2 or 3 stretch goals by the time it's all said and done. I've got a cool Death Head Doug sticker that's coming up as another stretch goal, and the third stretch goal is actually going to be that Strangeville home movies DVD that I told you about. And that's why it's not in the. That's why you can't get it as a free DVD, or not a free DVD, but why you can't get it on the DVD tier, because it's actually going to be the third stretch goal giveaway that comes with. So you'll end up with a graphic, 64-page full color graphic novel. You'll end up with an 11x17 poster, a sticker, and a Hack Movies DVD, all for the low price of $25. So that ain't bad.
It ain't bad at all. The books are already done and printed. He's just waiting for that IGG money to mail them out.
Yep, no risk campaign, and we've fulfilled 4 of them at this point. We did two Dead Shit campaigns, Cockhammer Lives campaign, the Strangeville Smokeweed card game campaign. So this is our fifth crowdfunding campaign. All of them funded, all of them fulfilled on time. I've never had someone complain and ask for a refund. I've never had anyone not get their products that they ordered. We try to be very
professional.
I guess professional, but again, I like to keep my word. Like the integrity of Strangeville is extremely important to me, and I want to make sure that you get what you pay for.
That is a perfect ending note. Thanks so much for joining us, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always fun to come and kick it with you guys. Your chat's always real lively too. I like these dudes in your chat also.
We have the best chat in not really Comicsgate.
Twitless asks, is there a toaster tier?
Is there a toaster tier? You'll have to go look, Twitless. So, but thanks so much. And everybody in the chat, go check out Kevin's IGG, his website. The link is in the description as well. And thanks a lot.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, of course.